Why would anyone willingly enter a place so dangerous that even satellite maps blur its edges? Why would a mother carry her child into a jungle that has no roads, no laws, and no guarantees of survival? To understand the Darién Gap, you have to start far from its tangled vines and muddy rivers. The reason people brave this hellscape lies in the crumbling cities of Caracas, the gang-ravaged neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince, and the uncertain streets of Quito. For millions, home is no longer safe, devastated by collapsing economies, corrupt governments, and escalating violence that makes each day a question of survival. In the year 2023, over 520,000 people risked their lives crossing the Darien. That number fell to just over 300,000 in 2024, and by early 2025 it dropped again, but not because things got better. Governments cracked down, but the desperation remained. These travelers are not just faceless migrants, they are parents, teachers, electricians, farmers, and children. At its peak, 1 in every 5 people making the crossing was a child under the age of 18. They come not only from Venezuela, Haiti, and Ecuador, but from countries as far away as Bangladesh, Cameroon, and China. Some have been traveling for months before even reaching the jungle. They sell everything they own, say goodbye to everyone they love, and place their hope in one final gamble. For them, the Darién Gap is not a choice, it's the last available path. It's a place they enter not because they are unaware of the dangers, but because every other door has already been closed. The Darién Gap is a 66-mile stretch of untamed wilderness between Yavisa, Panama, and Turbo da Colombia. It's the only missing section of the Pan American Highway, a network of roads that connects Alaska to the southern tip of South America. This break in the route was never completed, not due to engineering failure, but because the land itself resists human intrusion. The terrain includes dense rainforests, steep mountains, swampy lowlands, and fast-moving rivers that are nearly impossible to cross safely. It is one of the most biologically diverse regions on Earth, but also one of the most inaccessible. There are no paved roads, no bridges, and no reliable maps. The area is home to jaguars, crocodiles, and venomous snakes, but the most unpredictable threat is human. Various armed groups, including smugglers, paramilitaries, and criminal gangs, operate in the region, often robbing or exploiting migrants. Even without human interference, the journey is punishing. Torrential rains can flood entire paths. Thick mud can trap you for hours, and exposure to heat and humidity can cause dehydration and illness quickly. The Panamanian government has deployed border security and humanitarian teams near the southern edge of the jungle, but their reach ends where the true jungle begins. No government fully controls the gap. It's one of the last remaining wild frontiers, a place where nature and lawlessness rule. For most people, it is a place to be studied from afar. For the growing number who cross it, it is a living nightmare they must walk through to survive. Crossing the Darién Gap is not a single trail. It's a maze of shifting, muddy paths, carved out by thousands of footsteps, machetes, and desperation. Migrants usually begin their journey on the Panamanian side near a remote town called Bajo Chiquito after being dropped off by boat from Colombia. From there, the only direction is forward into a jungle that swallows everything behind it. Guides, often called coyotes, lead groups through the harshest parts, but many migrants are left to navigate on their own. A typical crossing takes between 4 and 10 days, depending on the weather, the physical condition of the group, and whether they get lost or injured along the way. Entire families, including children and elderly people, make this journey. Many carry little more than a backpack and plastic bags to keep their few belongings dry. They face flash floods, wild animals, and the constant risk of injury or death. Makeshift camps form along the way, often littered with discarded clothes, empty water bottles, and signs of previous groups who either made it through or didn't. Some groups stumble upon graves or human remains, grim reminders of how dangerous this passage is. There is no food or clean water inside the jungle. Many rely on whatever they can carry or find: contaminated streams, wild fruits, and rationed snacks. If someone gets sick or injured, help is rarely available. The jungle is too thick for helicopters, and most rescuers will not risk entering beyond the edges. The Darién Gap is not just a physical obstacle. It is a test of human limits, one that thousands attempt every year, knowing the risks, because for many, turning back is not an option. As more people began to cross the Darién Gap, the region turned into the site of a growing humanitarian crisis. According to reports from the United Nations, more than 248,000 migrants crossed the jungle in the year 2023 alone, a record-breaking number. This surge overwhelmed the limited resources of local communities, non-governmental organizations, and emergency services trying to assist along the migration route. Remote Panamanian villages such as Bajo Chiquito and Lajas Blancas, which were once quiet indigenous communities, became overwhelmed by the daily arrival of hundreds of exhausted, injured, and dehydrated people. Medical care in these areas is minimal. Temporary clinics set up by international aid groups often lack supplies, antibiotics, and clean water. Many migrants arrive with infected wounds, stomach illnesses from drinking contaminated water, or trauma from injuries sustained while crossing rivers or falling on steep terrain. Others bear signs of more sinister encounters: assault, theft, and abandonment by smugglers who fled when conditions became too dangerous. Children are especially vulnerable. Many fall ill from dehydration, hunger, and insect-borne diseases like malaria and dengue fever. Families sometimes become separated in the dense forest, leading to devastating consequences. Some migrants recount walking past people too sick or injured to continue, left behind in the mud, hoping someone else will come to help. Despite the risks, the flow is not slowed. The Darién Gap has become both a corridor of hope and a path of suffering. For those who survive it, the jungle becomes more than just a memory. It becomes a symbol of what they endured in their search for a better life. Beneath the surface of the Darién Gap lies a vast and dangerous black market economy fueled by human smuggling networks. With increased migration through the region, organized criminal groups have embedded themselves deeply into the route, profiting from the desperation of those attempting to reach North America. These groups, often connected to cartels or regional gangs, charge migrants thousands of dollars for a guided passage through the jungle. Many of these so-called guides or coyotes are untrained, untrustworthy, and sometimes abandon groups mid-journey. In recent years, Colombian and Panamanian authorities have discovered complex smuggling operations operating across both sides of the border. Some of these networks offer tiered pricing systems, where wealthier migrants pay for faster or supposedly safer passage, while poorer individuals are forced onto longer, more dangerous trails. In some cases, payments are extorted midway through the journey under threat of violence or abandonment. According to humanitarian groups working in the region, some women have been forced to exchange personal belongings or endure assault in exchange for continued passage. Illegal mining and drug trafficking also intersect with the migrant trails. In the Colombian portion of the Darien, certain paths cross through zones controlled by armed groups involved in narcotics transport. These groups often demand passage fees from smugglers or migrants directly, creating a layered and dangerous toll system. Smugglers have even been known to recruit desperate migrants into carrying illicit goods as payment for their journey. Mobile phone signals in the jungle are nearly non-existent, making it almost impossible for migrants to call for help or alert authorities. This isolation allows criminal groups to operate with little interference. Meanwhile, local law enforcement is limited, under-resourced, and often unable to respond quickly to violence or disappearances. This hidden economy thrives on chaos. For the cartels and smuggling rings, the Darien is not just a jungle, it is a lucrative business corridor. And as long as people keep coming, they will continue to profit, no matter the human cost. As the number of migrants crossing the Darién Gap continues to rise, governments, humanitarian groups, and local communities are grappling with how to respond to the ongoing crisis. In the year 2023 alone, more than 500,000 people attempted the crossing, a record-breaking figure that placed enormous strain on both Colombian and Panamanian authorities. Many of these migrants came from Venezuela, Haiti, Ecuador, and even as far away as China and Afghanistan, each driven by different political, economic, or personal reasons. Despite the danger, word has spread through social media and migrant networks that the trail, while brutal, is a path worth risking. In response, the Panamanian government has increased its presence at border checkpoints like Bajo Chiquito and Lajas Blancas, where exhausted travelers are received, documented, and offered basic medical care. However, the resources remain limited, and the flow of people far outpaces the capacity of the infrastructure. Colombia has also announced joint security operations with Panama, but efforts are hindered by the rugged terrain and the presence of armed groups. International organizations, such as the United Nations and Doctors Without Borders, have warned of a growing humanitarian disaster. Disease, injury, and mental trauma are widespread among those who survive the crossing. Medical volunteers on the ground report treating cases of dehydration, snake bites, infected wounds, and survivors suffering from severe psychological distress. Meanwhile, environmentalists are raising concerns about the impact of heavy foot traffic through one of the most biodiverse areas on Earth. Makeshift camps, litter, and human waste are now scattered across parts of the jungle that were once pristine. Conservationists warn that without regulation or coordinated policy, the ecosystem may suffer permanent damage. Policy discussions in Washington, D.C. and across Central and South America have increased, but solutions remain elusive. While some leaders propose strengthening border security, others advocate for increased funding for humanitarian aid and legal migration pathways. The people of the Darien region, including indigenous communities and rural farmers, continue to bear the brunt of the crisis, often without a voice in larger political decisions. For now, the Darién Gap remains what it has always been, a place of danger, endurance, and hope. With no clear end in sight, it stands as a stark symbol of the lengths to which people will go for the chance at a better life, and of the global responsibility to reckon with the realities of forced migration. Located in the eastern reaches of the Bay of Bengal, North Sentinel Island is one of the most geographically secluded and culturally enigmatic places on Earth. Measuring approximately 60 square kilometers, the island is part of the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago, an Indian Union territory composed of more than 500 islands. North Sentinel stands apart both physically and symbolically. It is encircled by a jagged ring of coral reefs that make it extremely difficult to approach by boat. There are no natural harbors or welcoming coves, and its shallow coastal shelf, coupled with powerful tidal surges, creates a constantly shifting aquatic barrier. Even experienced navigators can find themselves at the mercy of these hidden dangers. From aerial imagery, the island appears as a dense green mass, its interior entirely cloaked by tropical rainforest. No roads cut through the foliage. No buildings pierce the canopy. There are no visible signs of agriculture or animal domestication. It is, in every sense, a place visually frozen in time, untouched by the mechanized sprawl of modern civilization. While satellite surveillance has confirmed some minimal footpaths and clearings, these are the only visible indications of human presence. Unlike nearby islands, which have been developed for tourism, infrastructure, or habitation, North Sentinel remains locked in a state of deep, deliberate inaccessibility. Despite its obscurity, North Sentinel is surrounded by an unmistakable aura of both danger and fascination. The Indian government enforces a strict no-access policy with a 5 nautical mile buffer zone surrounding the island. Aircraft are prohibited from flying overhead at low altitude, and sea vessels are required to steer well clear. This legal framework is not just a bureaucratic shield, it is a life-preserving necessity. The people who live on this island, known as the Sentinelese, have had minimal to no sustained contact with the outside world and possess no natural immunity to common pathogens. Even a minor cold could prove catastrophic if introduced to their community. Geologists believe the island is a product of ancient volcanic activity, now dormant and overtaken by thick jungle. Its isolation has likely protected rare plant and animal species, some of which may be undocumented due to the total absence of on-foot scientific exploration. The surrounding waters are biologically rich, fed by monsoonal currents and tidal upwellings that support coral reefs and seagrass beds, vital resources for shallow water fishing, which the island's inhabitants rely on. The island's remoteness, combined with its strict legal protection and the absolute rejection of outsiders by its people, has created a unique paradox. In a world where even the most remote corners are mapped and monitored, here lies a place that remains, by choice and necessity, largely unknown. And within that unknown, North Sentinel continues to resist not only physical entry, but also cultural comprehension. The Sentinelese are among the last known groups of humans to have avoided sustained contact with the outside world. Based on limited observations from a distance, their estimated population ranges from as few as 50 to as many as 150 individuals. However, due to the island's inaccessibility and the people's resistance to any approach, these estimates remain speculative. Unlike many other isolated groups around the world, the Sentinelese have not been studied up close, and no anthropological fieldwork has been conducted directly among them. Their language remains entirely unclassified. It does not resemble any of the known languages spoken by other tribes in the Andaman Islands, such as the Jarawa or the Ongsh. Linguists believe it could be a linguistic isolate, meaning it is unrelated to any other language family known to exist. This further emphasizes the possibility that the Sentinelese have been cut off for thousands of years, maintaining a unique cultural and linguistic identity that has evolved independently. Their tools are simple but purposeful. Observations have shown that they use spears, arrows, and rudimentary knives, many of which are tipped with metal salvaged from shipwrecks that have run aground on their reefs. This scavenged material is shaped and used without evidence of smelting or metalworking, suggesting a Stone Age level technological base with rare adaptations made from modern debris. Clothing is minimal, often limited to plant-based belts or adornments, and there is no visible sign of pottery, writing, or agriculture. Despite their technological simplicity, the Sentinelese demonstrate complex behavior in terms of territory defense, group organization, and tool use. They construct temporary shelters along the shoreline and appear to have designated lookout points. When outsiders have approached, responses have been quick and coordinated, indicating a strong sense of communal awareness and decision-making. There are no known photographs of the island's interior or its people taken from ground level in recent years. Most sightings have been from helicopters or distant boats, with the Sentinelese often retreating into the jungle if they sense surveillance. Their elusive behavior has only added to the air of mystery surrounding them, making it impossible to confirm how they govern themselves. What their spiritual beliefs may be, or how their society is structured, the Sentinelese are protected not only by geographical isolation, but also by international law. India recognizes them as a sovereign people and forbids any attempt to make contact. This legal barrier is designed to safeguard their health, autonomy, and way of life. With no immunity to modern diseases, even a short visit could result in a deadly outbreak. As a result, the Sentinelese remain a rare example of a community that exists beyond the influence of globalization. They are living proof that human cultures can survive, independently, resiliently, and on their own terms when left undisturbed. Their continued existence raises powerful questions about human diversity, cultural boundaries, and the ethics of exploration in the 21st century. Human interaction with North Sentinel Island has always been rare and often dangerous. The earliest recorded mention of the island came in the year 1880, when British colonial officer Maurice Vidal Portman led an expedition to the island as part of his efforts to study the indigenous tribes of the Andaman Islands. Portman and his team captured 6 Sentinelese individuals, 2 elderly people and 4 children, and brought them to Port Blair, the capital of the Andaman Islands. Tragically, the 2 elders died of disease shortly after, likely due to their lack of immunity to outside pathogens. The children were eventually returned to the island, but the event left a lasting impact on the tribe's perception of outsiders. For nearly a century following that incident, North Sentinel remained largely undisturbed. Its isolation was partially protected by the surrounding coral reefs, which made navigation treacherous for even the most experienced sailors. However, accidental contact would occasionally occur, most notably in the year 1981, when the cargo ship Primrose ran aground on a reef just off the island's coast. The crew, stranded and awaiting rescue, reported seeing groups of armed Sentinelese watching them from the shoreline. Though they were never attacked directly, the threat was clear. The crew was eventually rescued by helicopter and the ship was left to decay in the shallows. Between the years 1967 and 1991, a series of government-sponsored contact expeditions took place. Led primarily by anthropologist Triloknath Pandit and supported by the Indian government, these attempts involve cautiously approaching the island by boat, leaving gifts such as coconuts, bananas, and iron tools on the beach, and then retreating without direct engagement. During some of these visits, Sentinelese individuals would appear on the shore, occasionally taking the offerings, or watching silently from the tree line. But even after decades of trying, no sustained, peaceful contact was ever established. In the year 1991, Pandit declared the efforts a failure and ended the program. He later stated that continued contact risked damaging the tribe both physically and culturally. By that point, the risks of introducing diseases to a population with no immunity had become more widely understood, and India began to shift its policy from outreach to protection. One of the most defining moments in recent history came in the year 2006, when 2 fishermen illegally approached the island to fish for crabs. Their boat drifted too close to the shore overnight and was found the next morning, abandoned and damaged. The men had been killed, their bodies visible from a distance, but impossible to retrieve due to the tribe's hostile response to recovery attempts. This event reinforced the island's deadly reputation and re-emphasized the Indian government's stance on absolute non-interference. Since then, the Indian government has maintained a strict exclusion zone around the island, prohibiting any approach within 3 nautical miles. Patrols are carried out by the Indian Navy and Coast Guard to enforce this buffer and prevent illegal contact. North Sentinel has, in effect, become one of the most off-limits places on Earth. These encounters, both deliberate and accidental, paint a picture of a people who have made a clear choice to remain isolated. Their reactions are not those of ignorance or fear, but of deliberate defense. Each interaction with the outside world has been met with caution or aggression, and their history makes one thing unmistakably clear: the Sentinelese want to be left alone. In the modern world, there are very few places where national law stops at the shoreline, but North Sentinel Island is one of them. Although it lies within Indian territory, the island exists in a legal and administrative gray zone that has been carefully constructed to ensure one thing: total isolation. The Indian government, recognizing the Sentinelese people's desire to remain untouched, has gone to great lengths to create policies that protect the tribe from the outside world and protect the outside world from them. In the year 1956, the island was officially designated as a tribal reserve under the Andaman and Nicobar Protection of Aboriginal Tribes Regulation. This early law prohibited any travel within 3 nautical miles of the island without special permission. Over time, the regulation became increasingly strict, especially after failed contact attempts and fatal encounters underscored the danger of uninvited visits. By the early 2000s, the Indian government had shifted from outreach to passive protection. In the year 2005, North Sentinel was removed from India's official tourism maps. 3 years later, in 2008, the government fully banned any approach or photography of the island, citing public safety and the tribe's vulnerability to disease. These restrictions remain in place today, enforced by regular patrols from the Indian Navy and Coast Guard, who monitor the surrounding waters and intercept any unauthorized boats. The Sentinelese are unique in that they are one of the few groups on Earth not subject to national law in any conventional sense. Indian authorities have repeatedly emphasized that the tribe is to be left alone, even in extreme circumstances. For example, after the deaths of 2 fishermen in the year 2006 and American missionary John Allen Chow in the year 2018, Indian officials made it clear that no arrests would be made and that the tribe would not be held legally accountable. The priority, they stated, was to avoid further contact or conflict. Internationally, the treatment of the Sentinelese has prompted both praise and debate. Human rights organizations, including Survival International, have voiced strong support for India's hands-off approach, arguing that uncontacted tribes should be allowed to live without interference. The United Nations has also acknowledged the tribe's right to self-isolation, highlighting North Sentinel as an example of extreme cultural preservation. However, the island has also raised difficult questions. What happens if a plane crashes near its shores? What if a Sentinelese individual seeks help or is injured? To these hypotheticals, the Indian government has offered a consistent reply: non-intervention. Their stance is clear: unless the tribe itself initiates contact, the rest of the world must stay away. Even in the age of satellites and global internet, the island remains invisible in a legal and cultural sense. No census includes them. No Indian law is actively enforced within their borders, and no roadmap exists for their future. In a world increasingly connected, North Sentinel Island stands defiantly alone, protected not just by distance, but by law and intent. Despite international protections and the Indian government's firm policies, North Sentinel Island has not always remained untouched. A handful of fatal encounters over the decades have thrust the island into the global spotlight and served as sobering reminders of the invisible boundary that must not be crossed. One of the earliest and most shocking incidents occurred in the year 1981. The cargo ship MV Primrose ran aground on a coral reef just off North Sentinel's coast during a storm. Stranded for several days, the crew reported seeing small figures emerging from the forest and approaching the wreck with bows and arrows. The men radioed for emergency rescue, and a helicopter eventually airlifted them to safety before a confrontation occurred. The wreckage of the Primrose remains rusting near the reef to this day, a ghostly reminder of that close call. In the year 2006, 2 Indian fishermen, Sundar Raj and Pandit Tiwari were illegally poaching crabs in the waters near North Sentinel. Their boat drifted too close to the island and was found the next day with both men reportedly killed by the Sentinelese. The Indian Coast Guard attempted to recover their bodies using a helicopter, but were forced to retreat after being met with a volley of arrows. The bodies were never retrieved. Instead, officials decided to respect the tribe's isolation and ended the search. Perhaps the most well-known incident occurred in the year 2018, when American missionary John Allen Chau attempted to make contact with the tribe. Believing it was his religious duty to bring Christianity to the Sentinelese, he paid local fishermen to smuggle him close to the island. After a failed first attempt where he was shot at by arrows, he returned days later. According to the fishermen, Chau was seen being struck and dragged away by tribesmen. His body was never recovered. The story made international headlines and reignited debate over whether any contact with uncontacted peoples should be attempted. These incidents have all ended the same way, either with retreat or tragedy. The consistent thread is the tribe's determination to defend its land and the world's eventual acceptance that their wishes must be respected. Each time the boundary has been crossed, the Sentinelese have responded with hostility, not out of malice, but out of a deep and generational instinct for survival. Their way of life has remained intact because of this fierce resistance. The Indian government's reaction to each of these events has been notably restrained. There have been no attempts at retaliation, no arrests, and no forced recoveries. Instead, officials have repeatedly emphasized that these incidents only strengthen the case for strict non-interference. Over time, these encounters have become cautionary tales, a warning to adventurers, missionaries, and tourists alike. This island is not a place to visit. Today, these stories serve as some of the only documented interactions with the tribe. In a world where even the remotest places are captured by drones and mapped in high resolution, North Sentinel remains an enigma, a place whose history is written not in books or broadcasts, but in silence, distance, and finality. In a world where satellite images peer into every crevice of the earth and GPS can pinpoint nearly every structure ever built, North Sentinel Island remains a blank spot, an anomaly of absence. It is a reminder that even in the 21st century, not everything can be cataloged, contacted, or understood. Protected under the Andaman and Nicobar protection of Aboriginal tribes regulation and reinforced by Indian law since the year 1956, the island is one of the few remaining territories where enforced inaccessibility is not only permitted but required. No aerial surveys, no anthropological missions, and no diplomatic negotiations. This is not out of neglect, but out of respect. For anthropologists, North Sentinel represents a paradox. It is one of the most culturally significant uncontacted societies on Earth, yet studying it, at least by modern academic standards, is impossible. Unlike other indigenous groups who have partially opened their worlds to researchers, the Sentinelese have remained entirely sealed off. No known exchange of language, no recorded interviews, and no detailed census exist. Their isolation has preserved not only their genetics, but also their worldview, one completely untouched by electricity, written language, or outside influence. There is no guarantee that this isolation will last forever. Rising sea levels pose a long-term threat to the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago. Environmental shifts, increased maritime traffic, and illegal fishing could one day draw outside attention closer than ever before. Some scientists worry that even indirect contact, like drifting plastic or airborne disease, could be enough to change the tribe's trajectory permanently. Still, for now, North Sentinel Island remains silent, both figuratively and literally. It has no ports, no roads, no airstrips, and no formal name in any outside language. What little we do know has come from accidental sightings, distant aerial footage, and carefully restricted governmental observations. The gaps in our knowledge are not from oversight, but by design. The questions that surround the Sentinelese remain unanswered, not because we have not asked, but because they have refused to answer, and the world has begun to listen. In many ways, North Sentinel is more than just a geographic location. It is a mirror held up to modern civilization, reflecting our need to explore and understand, even when understanding is neither possible nor welcomed. It reminds us that some mysteries do not need solving, and that the truest form of respect is distance. As the rest of the planet accelerates toward globalization, artificial intelligence, and interconnectedness, North Sentinel stands still, firm in its silence, certain in its solitude, and unwilling to surrender its story to history books or headlines. It is a place that challenges our assumptions, humbles our knowledge, and leaves us with one final truth. Not every corner of the world was meant to be known. Our story begins not with a hero, but with a creature, one that has become both a symbol of beauty and a warning sign for danger. Meet the golden lancehead viper, Bothrops insularis, an animal so rare and so lethal it exists only in one place on Earth, Ilha da Comada Grande, more famously known as Snake Island. Visually, it's striking. Sleek and agile, with a golden bronze hue that catches the light in the dense Atlantic forest canopy. Its triangular head gives it a distinctly menacing look, and it's this head shape, like the tip of a spear, that inspired its name. But don't let its elegance fool you, this is no ordinary snake. The golden lancehead is an apex predator, armed with a venom so potent, so fast-acting, it has captivated toxicologists and herpetologists alike. What makes this viper unique isn't just its potency, it's the exclusivity of its existence. It doesn't live in jungles or swamps or deserts. It doesn't slither across continents. It lives and survives on a patch of land no larger than 106 acres, marooned 20 miles off the southeastern coast of Brazil. That patch is its entire world, and every story about Snake Island, from sensationalist headlines to cautious scientific papers, comes down to this one snake and its evolutionary legacy. But how did this serpent come to rule one of the most dangerous and forbidden places on the planet? Why is its venom so much more powerful than that of its mainland relatives? And how did one species end up with an entire island to itself? To answer that, we have to go back, far back, to the end of the last ice age. Because the golden lancehead didn't choose its island. It was trapped there by time, by geology, and by forces far beyond its control. This isn't just a story of a deadly snake. It's the origin story of a natural marvel shaped by isolation, desperation, and evolution. To understand the golden lancehead's island home, we need to travel back about 11,000 years to the end of the last ice age. During this period, massive glaciers that had locked up vast amounts of the Earth's water began to melt, causing global sea levels to rise steadily. What was once continuous land along the coast of present-day Sao Paulo, Brazil, started to fragment as the rising Atlantic Ocean swallowed low-lying areas. One particular hilltop, home to a population of pit vipers known as Bothrops jararaca, found itself slowly becoming isolated. This high ground, once connected to the mainland, gradually turned into an island as the surrounding land was submerged. Over time, this isolated landmass became what we now call Ilha da Queimada Grande, Snake Island. Measuring only about 106 acres, the island is small but rugged, featuring steep cliffs that rise sharply from the ocean. There are no sandy beaches or easy landing spots, and dense tropical forests cover much of the rocky terrain. Its natural defenses, both geographical and biological, make it a fortress almost impossible to invade. For the vipers stranded there, this transformation was a radical change. Their ecosystem was cut off from the mainland, including the rodents and small mammals they relied on for food. While free from many mainland predators, the snakes faced a new challenge: survival in a limited, resource-scarce environment. The island was both their prison and their proving ground. This geological event, an island born from rising seas, set in motion a unique evolutionary path. The vipers trapped on Queimada Grande were forced to adapt in ways that would eventually make them unlike any other snake on Earth. This island isolation would shape not only their behavior and diet, but also the deadly venom that defines their existence today. With no ground-dwelling prey left on the island, the golden lancehead vipers faced an urgent survival challenge. Unlike their mainland ancestors who hunted small mammals like rodents, these snakes had to adapt to an entirely new food source: migratory birds. These birds stopped on the island during their long journeys across the Atlantic, offering a fleeting opportunity for the vipers to hunt. But hunting birds is a completely different challenge. When bitten, a small mammal might stumble and die nearby, allowing the snake to track it easily. Birds, however, can fly away quickly, escaping the snake's reach before the venom takes full effect. This meant the vipers had to evolve a venom capable of incapacitating their prey almost instantly, preventing them from flying off and escaping. Over thousands of years, natural selection favored snakes with faster acting and more potent venom. The golden lancehead's venom became significantly more toxic than that of its mainland relatives, developing an ability to kill or paralyze a bird within seconds. This rapid effect ensures the snake doesn't lose its meal to the skies. The venom itself is a complex cocktail of toxins that attack the prey's blood, tissues, and nervous system. It causes severe pain, swelling, internal bleeding, and tissue damage, and can lead to kidney failure. One of the most notable effects is necrosis, where the venom essentially begins to dissolve the flesh around the bite, starting the digestive process early. This adaptation is a dramatic example of an evolutionary arms race, driven by the snake's need to survive in its isolated environment. The venom's speed and strength are not just deadly, but perfectly tuned for the island's unique ecology. Intriguingly, while the venom is a lethal weapon, it also holds medical promise. Related lancehead species venom has been studied for developing drugs to treat conditions like high blood pressure, showing that nature's deadliest toxins can also be life-saving. Ilha da Queimada Grande, or Snake Island, has long been wrapped in myths and eerie stories that add to its deadly reputation. One of the most persistent legends claims that pirates deliberately released the golden lancehead vipers on the island to protect their hidden treasure. While this tale captures the imagination, it's pure fiction. Scientific evidence shows the snakes have been isolated here for thousands of years due to natural geological changes, not human interference. Another chilling story centers around the lighthouse keeper who lived on the island during the early 20th century. From 1909 until the 1920s, a lighthouse operated manually to guide ships along this treacherous stretch of the Brazilian coast. According to local lore, the keeper and his family were overwhelmed by a sudden invasion of snakes entering through an open window, resulting in their deaths. Although no official records confirm this event, it underscores just how dangerous living on the island truly was. Recognizing the lethal risk, the Brazilian Navy automated the lighthouse in the 1920s, eliminating the need for human presence on the island. Since then, the island has remained officially off-limits to the public. Today, only Brazilian Navy personnel and a select group of scientists are permitted to visit, primarily for lighthouse maintenance and research purposes. These visits are tightly controlled, with strict safety protocols, including carrying antivenom and medical staff on hand. The island's official closure serves two critical purposes: protecting people from the island's extreme danger and preserving the fragile golden lancehead population. Poaching is a real threat. These snakes fetch exorbitant prices on the black market, ranging from $10,000 to $30,000 per specimen. Illegal collectors risk their lives to capture these snakes, further endangering an already critically endangered species. The story of human interaction with Snake Island is a tangled mix of legend, caution, and modern conservation challenges. When people hear about Ilha da Queimada Grande, they often imagine a snake lurking behind every tree, leading to the popular claim that there's one snake per square meter. But is this really true? Biologists who have studied the island say that this number is an exaggeration when considering the island as a whole. Large portions are rocky and barren, unsuitable for snakes. However, in the dense forested areas where the golden lancehead vipers thrive, the snake density can approach this terrifying figure, meaning you could be mere feet from a venomous snake at any time. The danger isn't just in numbers. The golden lancehead's venom is incredibly potent and fast-acting, far deadlier than that of its mainland relatives. This venom evolved specifically to kill quickly, a necessity when hunting birds that can fly away. The combination of lethal venom and high snake density creates an environment where the risk of a fatal encounter is extremely high. The island's rugged terrain compounds the danger. Steep cliffs, dense vegetation, and rocky outcrops provide countless hiding places, making it nearly impossible to avoid the snakes. There are no clear paths or safe zones for visitors, turning every step into a gamble. Add to that the island's isolation, about 20 miles off the Brazilian coast, and the lack of immediate medical help means that a snake bite is a race against time. With these factors combined, the lethal venom, the dense population, the unforgiving landscape, and the remote location, Snake Island makes a strong case as one of the deadliest places on the planet. While other locations might have larger predators or more varied threats, few can match the concentrated, relentless danger found here. Every moment on the island is a reminder of nature's raw power and the fine line between survival and death. Despite its fearsome reputation, the golden lancehead viper is a species in serious trouble. Classified as critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, its entire population is confined to the tiny Ilha da Queimada Rio Grande, which covers just about 106 acres. This extreme isolation has resulted in a very limited gene pool, leading to concerns about inbreeding and genetic health. In fact, scientists have documented an unusually high number of intersex individuals within the population, a rare condition that signals genetic stress and potential reproductive challenges. Beyond genetics, the species faces threats from human activity. Illegal poaching is a persistent problem, with some collectors willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a single golden lancehead. This black market demand puts tremendous pressure on a population that cannot easily replace lost individuals. Moreover, the snake's survival depends heavily on the migratory birds that rest on the island, which serve as their primary food source. Habitat loss and environmental changes on the mainland threaten these bird populations, posing an indirect but serious risk to the snake's food supply. The island's history itself bears scars of human impact. The name Kuosiesius Queimada Grande means big burning, a reference to failed attempts to clear the land with fire for banana plantations in the early 20th century. These fires damaged the island's fragile ecosystem and demonstrated just how vulnerable this unique habitat is to disturbance. Ironically, the very danger posed by the golden lancehead is what protects its home. The island's deadly reputation keeps most people away, serving as a natural conservation shield. The Brazilian government strictly controls access, allowing only limited visits by Navy personnel for lighthouse maintenance and authorized researchers who follow rigorous safety protocols. The challenge now is to maintain this delicate balance, protecting a species that could kill humans with a single bite while ensuring it does not disappear from the planet. The golden lancehead is a testament to nature's power and fragility, an evolutionary marvel that demands our respect and protection. Ilha da Queimada Grande stands as one of the most extraordinary natural laboratories on Earth, a place where evolution's relentless forces have created something both deadly and fascinating. The golden lancehead viper is not merely a venomous snake. It is a symbol of survival, adaptation, and the delicate balance of isolated ecosystems. Its existence challenges our understanding of nature's power and vulnerability, reminding us that some places on the planet operate under rules vastly different from our own. While its reputation as the deadliest spot on Earth is well earned, the island is far more than a horror story. It is a vital piece of our planet's biodiversity and a warning about the consequences of isolation, human interference, and environmental change. The lessons learned here reach beyond venom and danger. They speak to the importance of respecting and protecting the world's most fragile habitats. Looking ahead, the future of Snake Island depends on careful stewardship. Scientists continue to study the golden lancehead's venom for medical breakthroughs, while conservationists work to safeguard the island's ecosystem from both natural and human threats. The Brazilian government's strict protection policies are crucial, but the ongoing risks from poaching and environmental change mean vigilance must remain high. Ultimately, Ilha da Queimada Grande is a powerful reminder. The deadliest places on Earth are often also the most precious and mysterious. They hold secrets about life's incredible adaptability and survival that we are only beginning to understand. And perhaps the greatest respect we can give to such places is to observe from afar, protecting them so future generations can marvel at nature's most extreme creations safely and responsibly. Now we want to hear from you. What other places on Earth do you think deserve the title of deadliest or most uniquely dangerous? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the planet's most fascinating mysteries.